Hrish, great to meet you.
Great to meet you too. It's a pleasure. It's an honor.
So let's, I guess the easiest thing is give us a bit of background and what you're up to.
Yeah, I'll be happy to start and give you a quick background on myself, really quick, and then again, I'd love to hear about your background as well, building at Superworld, and define that. So my background is I was born in India, I grew up in the United States, currently in Miami, but I'm very globally nomadic. So I've always loved the world, loved travel, love culture. So, building a platform, a virtual world on top of the real world, like Superworld, is really, part of my heart. It's something I'm very passionate about. It's something I'm very grateful to be able to have the opportunity to do, and very excited about creating a very inclusive world that everyone can be involved in and help shape and build. But my career started off in management consulting. I worked in Wall Street and investment banking. I was at UBS and HSBC, starting out in public finance, corporate finance, and M&A. It's funny, I started off at UBS in the real estate investment banking group, and I'm doing virtual real estate now. So, things kind of come full circle. It's funny how life happens that way. But got into venture capital in New York for a number of years, investing across tech and biotech. About 10 years ago, I had a crazy idea, which was, wouldn't it be cool to go to the emerging markets somewhere and start a VC fund? I'm interested in travel, and thought, hey, that would be kind of a fun, cool thing to do. So I got on a plane, didn't know anyone, went to Ukraine, Russia, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Moldova. Took me about a year and a half, but I started a venture capital fund backed by Victor Pinchuk. Victor's the guy who backs Yuri Milner at DST. DST is a big growth fund, as you know. And Victor backed me in starting a fund called East Labs, where we invested in about 20 companies out in that part of the world. Preply is one of our companies. They're the largest online tutoring marketplace in the world. And then I did the same thing in Belarus. I'm on the board of Tech Minsk, which is backed by the US State Department and Google. Actually, the company that does all the face filters for Instagram and Facebook, it's a company called Masquerade. They do all the AR filters. They went through my accelerator and got bought by Facebook. So I got in early into the AR, VR space, at least had some exposure through that. And then after that was early at a company called TopTal. TopTal is an Andreessen Horowitz-backed talent marketplace, which is now a unicorn company. It's the #1 talent marketplace in the world. So learned a lot about how to grow and scale, be experimental, be scrappy. It was a really great experience learning how to build a company and be in that environment. And then 5 years ago, I co-founded Rogue Initiative Studios, which is a film, television, gaming, and virtual reality studio in Hollywood. My co-founder produced Call of Duty, Modern Warfare series, and Ghosts. And my production partner is Michael Bay, the action director, who's known for Transformers, The Island, Armageddon, Pearl Harbor. And so at Rogue Initiative, what we do is we build new franchises that go across feature film, television, gaming, virtual reality, all the way to amusement park rides and toys. And the reason I tell you all that is that's how I got into AR and VR. So Rogue Initiative is backed by all the top AR, VR venture capital funds in Silicon Valley. And what happened was about 5 years ago, as the world knows, Pokemon Go came out and became this huge worldwide sensation. A lot of people don't know, but it was the fastest company in history to hit $1 billion in revenue. And even this year was one of their best years ever. And so back then we thought, you know what? If we can't build the next Pokemon Go, what if we could build a world? What if we could build a place where anyone could be empowered to build a virtual world for whatever they love? And how could we build that world on Web3 where anyone could actually own the places around the world that they love and get a share of all of the commerce and activity that happens in those locations from any of the users or brands that are creating, discovering, or monetizing content anywhere on that world? And that was the vision of Superworld.
Not a small vision, then.
yeah.
You want to build your own world. It's kind of megalomania, right?
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. But, it was really trying to empower people was our kind of interest there, is like, how could we, take that concept of what Pokemon Go did and really enable anyone, whether it's, you're interested in macro finance, whether you're interested in entertainment, whether you're interested in education, empower you to create a world where anyone can access content.
Where is this all going? well, let's start with both thinking around that process. We all know, we talk about Metaverse a lot. There's all sorts of variations of it. What's in your head? Where is this all going? This Web 3.0, this new move towards the Metaverse, crypto, it all kind of fits together into this big picture. How are you thinking it through?
Yeah, I think that as we know, there have been and continuing to will be, strong incumbent technology companies that are creating social networks and platforms that have scaled and have proven, to be very compelling. And I think that, the issue, as we all know, with many of those economies is that there's not an ownership, there's not transparency of ownership, there's not the ability to, again, get an ROI on all that time spent in those virtual worlds. And I think Web3 opens the way to ownership and utilizing structures like NFTs to be able to, again, create, businesses and an economy direct from creators to their customers and fans and followers. And so I think we are moving to, platforms that enable, any and all of us to become creators, to have the ability to follow our passions. And again, to be able to connect with our customers, with our followers in a very direct fashion, and have that transparency and programmability of the things that we're creating. So I think that's where we're going. We're seeing it in different ways that that's happening, but I think the metaverse is kind of the biggest, broadest way. So
yeah, I mean, I'm just seeing it as the logical conclusion of all of this technology. And I think the metaverse is a state of being and not a state. It's not a place. It's not a thing. It's a state of being, how we become more digitally fluid. So the transition between the physical world and the digital world is almost unrecognizable. Whether that's with what Apple are building out with AR, whether it's VR, or just the fact that we now meet on Zoom all the time, it's become a kind of normal world for us to operate in. And it feels like it's hurtling towards this event horizon. And, what's really interesting to me is Web 2.0 brought about online communities. And we're now turning those communities into online states, essentially. Because once you introduce a system of money or economic value and a set of rules within a particular group, your community, then that's the way of getting these kind of complex adaptive societies to function. And that we can operate in all of these different worlds at the same time. Our physical world, mine might be the Cayman Islands, and yours this next 6 months might be Miami, Florida. But we exist in all these different worlds all at the same time. And it's that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. And I don't even know what that is going to look like, because we kind of limit ourselves by our own imagination a lot of the time. So, for example, when we build virtual worlds, we think we want to make a virtual world in which we understand it to be similar, where we have a similar kind of real estate. But then I'm not even sure what's applicable in the future state. It's fascinating. I don't know. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I love what you explained and how you explained it, and I think that I think we believe the same thing in terms of how we're building out Superworld, which is we're putting the tools out there, whether it's Web3, whether it's the ability to create NFTs on the content creation side, whether it's owning of real estate and enabling someone to become a stakeholder that way. Really putting these different mechanisms out there. Again, we're launching a token very soon that will incorporate a lot of the mechanisms that you're seeing in virtual worlds to the real world. So the way we're thinking about it is, how can we bring all of these things into someone's real life, as opposed to sucking them into a virtual world? How do we incorporate and leverage these technologies to your real life? How do I get Nike to pay for you to go on a run and have you earn crypto for doing things in the real world that maybe you're passionate about or things you would already do? And then, to your point, what we're doing is we're seeing how people want to use the technology, and they're showing us. And what the beauty of Superworld is that, you know, when you buy a place, whether you buy the Cayman Islands or you know, a spot in South Beach on Miami or a place in Manhattan in New York, you know, the users themselves, the super citizens, which is what we call them, have very specific profiles in many cases, right? So if they're an artist, you know, they want to create NFTs. If they're an educator, they might want to create some educational content. If they're an entertainer, they want to do a concert or a live event somewhere. And so they're giving us very specific use cases. And as you said, you know, some of those things, you know, we can't even anticipate, right? As DAO structures, we're enabling DAO structures in the future to be formed on Superworld. You know, I think people are going to come together and be able to form, you know, entities that, you know, provide different use cases and provide different roles for all of those people to benefit. And again, I think, you know, one of our investment partners calls this passionware. And I think, you know, we're kind of seeing the passions of all of our communities kind of be able to flourish with these tools.
Is Superworld a place or is it a thing? What is it?
So, you know, I always say Superworld is a movement. And it's a movement, whereas we leverage these technologies. So we're mapped on top of the real world. We're cross-platform. You can find us on mobile, on web. We'll be on glasses. We'll be on audio. We'll be on haptics. We're hardware, you know, agnostic. We're software agnostic. So we're built on Google. We're built on Apple. You know, we'll build on Oculus. We'll build on, you know, any of the hardware manufacturers coming out of Asia. We're platform agnostic, you know, cross-platform. We're blockchain interoperable. We're on Ethereum right now, but again, we're looking at integrations with other blockchains. But so, you know, again, it's less about the technology because, you know, to your point, the technology is going to evolve and the use cases are going to evolve. And I think how we characterize Superworld is we're building a movement, and that movement is all about building a better world and empowering people and leveraging these technologies to
what does that mean though? Because that's, you know, we all do that, wave our hands in the air. So I just want to build a better world.
Yes.
In the end,
yeah.
What the hell does that mean?
Yes. Yeah, I can define it very specifically. So first of all, we want to empower people. So what does that mean? It means that, you know, first of all, we believe in permissioned use of data, data integrity, data sovereignty. So again, I describe Superworld in like a three-pronged analogy. So the first prong of Superworld is Pokemon Go, which is the analogy for adding digital information to the real world, right? There's an unlimited number of filters on the real world. You have a world, I have a world, brands have worlds. I can switch between these filters. You can leave content, you can create, discover, and monetize content anywhere. So the first part of the analogy is Pokemon Go. The second part of the analogy is Foursquare. It's a data analogy. So on the data side, you know, if there's an unlimited number of virtual worlds, lots of data. So on the data side, we want to empower users with data monetization. So we want you to get paid for your data. We want it to be very permissioned. And then secondly, we want to empower humanity and communities. And how do we do that? So when you buy a plot of land in Superworld, as an example, we'll plant a tree in the real world. You know, 2 months ago, we're helping to clean up the water in Flint, Michigan. This last month, we've partnered with the World Bank in the Caribbean to, you know, counter the disaster effects of hurricane season. We've partnered with countries there. We have ambassadors who are, you know, hawking NFTs for their countries. You know, we've worked in Haiti with the earthquake. Last week in the Amazon, we've brought together two warring tribes who've been warring for 500 years. They've created NFTs in the Amazon jungle, and you can visit the jungle in augmented reality and see and buy their NFTs. And the purpose of that is to highlight reforestation and the other issues that are happening in the Amazon. A month ago, I was speaking in Venice for the rebuilding of Beirut, Lebanon, where we've partnered with the United Nations and UNESCO to utilize AR and VR and NFTs and virtual real estate to help rebuild a city where you're incorporating these technologies and enabling the citizenry to help kind of shape this new city that's going to be rebuilt there. So that's what I mean specifically. And again, you know, the third part of the Superworld analogy is the monopoly analogy, where we've divided the surface of the earth into 64 billion blocks. Each block is a unique digital asset covering a city block of land all over the earth. And if you buy a block, you're a key stakeholder on the platform. You're getting a share of all of the economics that happen there: advertising, e-commerce, digital commerce, data, analytics, and gaming. And then we
how does that happen in a digital world where it doesn't need to exist in a physical place? So do you get the share of the super world revenue, is what you're saying, or the revenue of what activity happens in your particular piece of real estate?
Well, both. So I'm talking two things. I'm talking about you're buying a virtual plot of land in Superworld that covers a physical place on Earth, right? So if you imagine, buying a piece of South Beach in Miami, you're buying a block of virtual land covering the surface of the Earth. So you're getting any of the, digital economics that are happening there: advertising, e-commerce, digital commerce, data, analytics, gaming, digitally, that's happening in that spot, in the infinite number of filters that it can exist there. My world, your world, Coca-Cola's world, Nike's world, right? Whatever, any content that exists there or is accessed there. But then, again, since we cover the surface of the Earth, the opportunity is for us to link up with any physical locations that are also marketing there physically or physically located there. So as an example, last week, we did a partnership with Custom House, which is a luxury club based in New York and Miami. They sold an NFT in Miami for a new location of Custom House, providing a lifetime membership to that location as an NFT. So that, again, is a digital, item that gives you access to a physical, real world, membership. And so we can access physical things, which is, the example would be come and buy a coffee and receive a digital item, at your Starbucks, right? And so we can start monetizing physical items as well. Buy an NFT, buy a plot of real land in Superworld, right? In the real world. So we do both, and I think that's the big opportunity: online, offline, offline, online opportunity.
Yeah, because I've been looking at where Apple is going with all of this, with their AR. I mean, they're probably the most furthest advanced. Not most people know this because they just think of their normal Apple devices, but they don't realize that Apple is basically mapping out the entire world for AR purposes, where, Apple have a huge benefit because they've got these, and that's a supercomputer in your hand, while Facebook doesn't have that. Yeah. And so therefore the glasses that Apple can create for AR are much easier and lighter touch because you don't need all the technology in it. So it's going to be super interesting, because then I can live in a different physical world to you, because my digital enhancements will be different to yours. And I can permission you to see an NFT on my wall or not permission you. I can have things arranged around me that are digital. And that's the kind of Pokemon world where these two worlds are seamless.
That's right.
That starts getting really fascinating, and who knows where the hell that's going to go, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly. I mean, we're building on Apple, we're building on Google, we're building on Oculus. So, we love the vision that Apple has. Their product is called AR Kit on iOS. Google's product is called AR Core. And both of those technologies are really building out the AR cloud, which enables us to, again, create in augmented reality and create persistent content in places. And I think, to your expertise, the blockchain and the growth of that, would love to hear your thoughts on, how you think, the growth of that market is going to enable us in terms of Web3 to, really impact and grow the user base around, Web3 in the Metaverse platform.
I think that what we think of as the blockchain, we're all focused on now because we're all making money out of trading cryptocurrencies. But actually what we're doing is building the foundation stones for digital ownership. It's and transferability and trust and all of those things. And we're about to go through, we're accelerating, and the whole space is growing at 113% a year. It's twice the speed of the adoption of the internet.
Yeah.
But it's about to go explosive because these are exponential trends. And you're about to put billions of people via two things. One is the central bank digital currencies that basically put them on the blockchain world. So everybody becomes interoperable in many ways. And secondly, Facebook DM, which is a massive deal. People don't get it. I mean, Facebook is basically about to become a sovereign state. Yes, its currency's backed by the US, pegged to the US dollar, but so is El Salvador. But what you've got is a fully operating system of money amongst a community of 3.5 billion people. And you've created a digital state.
Yeah.
And it's one of the largest states on earth. I don't think governments have even figured this out yet. They're still fighting about, what should DIM do? They're not thinking, holy shit, these people are building a digital sovereign state and it'll be the first one in the world. Yes, we've got small ones with these communities and blockchains. That's what I think is coming here. I think this whole movement, the next phase of the crypto thing is not going to be about caring that it's crypto. It's going to be about, NFTs or culture as an investment, being part of the culture, involved in the communities and participating in the kind of behavioral economics aspect of it. And that's going to grow much faster because people aren't going to be thinking, oh, what blockchain is that? Do I like that blockchain? How decentralized is it? Nobody's going to care. How we buy, store, move things around. It's like, I don't know what computer you're on, what phone network you're on, what software you're running. It's irrelevant to either of us. And that's what crypto world will become. It's this next layer of consumer stuff that changes everything. And the speed at which this is going to happen, I don't think people are prepared for.
Yeah. And what do you, again, as a technologist and as one of a team of people on our side that's building a lot of this out and thinking through this, as we're building, what do you think of interoperability across chains? What do you think that one who's building this space should prioritize as we're thinking about, the fact that what you just said is in the future, it's not going to matter, but, over the next 5 or 10 years, for example, we're built on Ethereum, we're looking at other integrations, how does one like us or in a technologist generally in the space kind of decide prioritization?
I think you start as you're doing, you choose something, and Ethereum's the best because it's got the deepest, richest community of developers, applications, and tools. But you have to be aware that you should be absolutely agnostic, as you said you were in the beginning, of what chain people use, how people do it, anything, even to wallets, because the more restrictions you place upon people, the less likely you will succeed. That's the reality here. Because again, if you are building digital sovereign states, generally the value will accrue to those that offer the best advantages. So whether that's financial incentives or whether it's freedoms or privacy or whatever value system you or I hold. And so I think we're going to see a lot of movement around who's offering what to the community. And part of this is right now, all of these cryptocurrencies are communities in their own right. Bitcoin is basically a community with a set of ideals. And the set of ideals is, some of them have the libertarian belief, others have the monetary thought process, store of value, but basically all coalesces about a bunch of beliefs. And then there's a system of money around it. I mean, it's all complex adaptive societies are all identical. And you need to be welcoming to all of those because you don't really care in the end. Your bet is not the cryptocurrency bet, your bet is the digital world bet. And they're two different bets. So, I think everybody in technology needs to stop thinking about, you start with one blockchain because it's easier. You get your experience, everything's new. And then after that, you need to make it as open as possible to everybody.
Yeah. And on the token side, again, as I mentioned, we're tokenizing, and that's kind of the next step for us in building out a lot of these mechanisms in real world society. Just curious on, as you're seeing, DeFi and DAOs and other structures and other ways of people interacting. Would love to hear just kind of high level, like what your thoughts on are Facebook's creating a world a sovereign state, and as new sovereign states are coming up, what's important if you're creating a digital sovereign state?
I think none of us know the answer, so you start with that. Secondly, realize that, and I've just had this conversation with someone, it was really interesting thought. There are literally hundreds of thousands of economic experiments being run in real time in all of these protocols, these DAOs, these DeFi protocols, the social tokens, the metaverses. These are all economic experiments, right? So we've never seen this pace of economic innovation.
Yeah,
and we have no idea what we're going to come up with. It's basically monkeys at a typewriter. Somebody's going to come up with Shakespeare, right? Somebody's going to come with the complete works of Shakespeare because there's that many people doing it. Yeah. So we just have to keep our minds open because there is no kind of master plan. You know, Tim Sweeney's not going to create the new world and we're all going to go and live there. It's just not going to work that way because there's so much innovation, entrepreneurial activity, and it's coalescing around two different things. One is kind of pure capitalism, and the other is society and community. Those two actually, in the present world, actually don't fit together pretty well. They do quite well here in the Cayman Islands. In the US, they're kind of opposite ends. You know, one you're labeled as progressive, and the other you're labeled as a right, a right winger, and those two worlds are not allowed to meet. But when I look at the experimentation going on, it's all coming on to something different. Community and capitalism all together. A DAO is basically a communist structure within a free market system. Right. This is interesting because if you got a bunch of economists, put them in the room and said, design a system, none of them would have done this. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it is super interesting. I love that, analogy about the monkeys and the typewriter producing Shakespeare. I think, that's, I guess, what's the best way? I think the best way to go about that is if you're creating a virtual world like Superworld is to enable more experimentation. And how do you, how to?
Yeah, I think that's right. And maybe the way to do it is to create incentive structures. So one obvious way is, once you've launched a token, you can get the community to decide what projects that they want to back. I think there's some elements of community backing. So again, you could create a DAO structure, which is a foundation that backs projects that the community thinks should get backed, and the community votes for that. So then what's happening is you start, and maybe you do it in tranches, like an accelerator program. So you could have a bunch that come through in an accelerator program. The community then decides, yes, of these 50 projects, the community is going to reward these 5. Those 5 can progress, the others fail. And what you're doing is allowing for rapid iteration, innovation, rewarding innovation, letting the community be involved, and you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
And they're all getting rewarded for it. So it creates a self-fulfilling ecosystem. How are you thinking of doing it?
Well, I think that the way you describe that is along the lines of what we are thinking. Again, I think our high level vision for Superworld is to, again, provide the tools that enable anyone to collectively or individually, create, discover, monetize anything, anywhere, and become a, stakeholder in a variety of ways on the platform. And so I think one of those tools and technologies in the blockchain is utilizing a DAO structure. So, I think part of that is, again, on the token side, in terms of our own token design, is to look at mechanisms that, again, provide incentives for experimentation, allow people to come together and create together.
And how do you deal with the fact that there's so much competition for places to do stuff? Because I'm seeing really broad projects like Definity or the Internet Computer. It's a different area, but they've created this entire world for people to develop and build on.
Yeah.
But there's like 1,000 of these things. How do you get How do you get network effects?
Yeah, I mean, I think, for us, the tip of the spear strategy for us, as we think of, the wide vision of Superworld and all that's possible.
Because you've got a huge vision. It's even difficult to articulate or understand.
Yeah, and I think, because of that, we're super focused on the NFT market. And so, the thing that we are enabling is how can we allow anyone, regardless of where they've created an NFT, any type of NFT, 3D, 2D, audio, literally anything. How do we enable them to share that NFT digital asset anywhere in the world and enable, anyone to discover those assets in three-dimensional space or audio, exactly any type of way that they're receiving or discovering that in anywhere in the world from any space. And so
what do you mean by in anywhere in the world?
So it means that you can create an NFT in your living room in the Cayman Islands, and you can put that NFT in Trafalgar Square in London. But
in the digital Trafalgar Square, in Superworld's digital Trafalgar Square?
In Trafalgar Square, in the physical world, in space, right? In augmented reality.
In augmented reality. And how do I see that?
You can see it right now in Superworld, picking up your mobile phone. If you're in Trafalgar Square, you can see it there. Or you can see it on your mobile phone on the map interface, and it'll appear in front of you wherever you are in the world. So you can see it in the Cayman Islands, right? If someone else left it there as an example, or you can see it on desktops. You can go to our desktop map. You can click on it. It'll show it to you in a video format on the map, or in a WebGL format where you can see it three-dimensional in a three-dimensional environment on your 2D screen.
How do you get the computing power to do all of this? And are you using stuff? Yeah, I mean, what talk to me about the tech and the computing power, because it sounds like a lot.
Yeah, so we're built on a variety of platforms, such as we're built on Apple's ARKit. We're utilizing Unity. We're integrating with Unreal Engine. We're built on AR Core on Google's mobile products. We're built on the web. Again, we're utilizing React, but we're also again on Ethereum on the real estate side of what we're doing, and on the NFT salon. We're also looking at other platforms such as Flow on the blockchain side to create digital assets. And again, Solana and others are also likely integration.
How many of you are there? How many of you are there?
Yeah, so we have the team's about 22 people right now, and we're expanding, to maybe 10, 20 more people in the next couple of months. We're doing.
That doesn't sound like a lot of people compared to creating an entire world. How do you do it?
It is, we have a really strong team of people, and there's a lot to do, so we're growing. But we've been at it for several years now. So, we've already built this. This is live. We're getting, traction. Our average paying user spends about $2,000 on the platform. They're buying up a lot of the world. I think what we're focused on right now is, as I said, what are users doing when they come to Superworld? What are they excited about? And what we're seeing, which is really, really, great to hear, is that, I hear three things when I talk to users. One of the things I hear is just, this blows my mind. I hear that phrase over and over again. Their eyes get really big. They get really galvanized, especially if they're creators, because they realize, wow, I can literally create anything anywhere and put it anywhere and monetize it from anywhere and create a programmable digital asset and soon a DAO and put that, create that from anywhere with anyone. And then the second thing is the story is very viral. So that does a lot of work for us. If you buy land in Superworld, Raoul, you will get someone else to buy land. You will, it's like a guarantee. It's a very, very viral story. We've been covered in the New York Times and CNBC, CBS, NBC, because they come to us, their producer owns land or their best friend owned land, and they want us to tell a story, especially when you realize, the kind of the social mission here is how can we, take advantage of the opportunity to build something very powerful and positive. And then finally, again, like I said, the users themselves are coming to build. So they come to us with ideas. They're like, hey, I want to put NFT. This is why we're, tip of the spear doing the NFT. Because a lot of our buyers are NFT creators, and they're like, hey, I want to put my NFTs not just on a 2D screen on my computer, but I want to showcase them around the world. I want them to be able to be accessed from anywhere. And so, they help us. And so, I think back to your question, I think we're going to build out, we have something called Team Superworld, which is hashtag Team Superworld, emoji earth, emoji heart. And that really means that we all come together as a world, as, a community to build together. And so we do have, a team that's growing internally, but we have this like huge external team of people that love what we're doing and want more of it. So
and they will build on it, I guess, is the point.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it's not just what we're building. We're going to provide the tools, and then they're going to, do a lot of building as well.
Fascinating. It's moving. Everything's moving so fast. It's incredible, right?
Yeah, no, it is very exciting. I mean,
you look over that way. You look over that way, and suddenly DeFi is exploding, and then you're trying to check out DeFi, and then there's like NFTs, and then it's something else. I mean, it's relentless right now.
Yeah, what do you think's coming next? In terms of
social tokens. I think that is the consumer app. I don't think it's NFTs. I think NFTs are part of it. I think social tokens, which basically mean that you are invested in the communities that you are part of. So really, Bitcoin's a social token for people who share the belief system around Bitcoin. It happens to have economic benefits too. But I think that's where this is going. So I think, there is no reason why Disney would not have a social token, or around Disney franchises if you have like-minded people, because you want to be part of the community, make it viral. So I think that culture will end up being the investment, and also it ends up with some system of universal basic equity as opposed to income, because you're being paid, as we talked about. You can get paid for your online presence, but you also get rewarded for being in a community that is growing and that has benefit to the ecosystem. So that, I think, is by far the biggest application of all. Sports teams are already being tokenized, pretty much everything. That's, I think, the next big phase. And I think it's early. I think really we'll see that wave 2 to 3 years. It's starting, but hasn't really taken off yet. Everyone's experimenting. There's lots of experiments going on. But soon we're going to see these mega communities, and everyone's going to go, fuck, everything's just changed.
And what excites you about that in terms of society?
What you're doing is sharing the economic benefits between creator or brand, because I think brands will be heavily involved, and their consumers, that they become a seamless part of the same thing, which is for the benefit of that community. And what it does is it essentially starts forcing out the middlemen. So if you're in the music industry, 80% of the economics goes to other people and not to the artist. Everybody has to access their audiences via Facebook and Google, or TikTok now as well. This changes that, because you now have a direct link with your fans, audience, consumer, everything else. So that changes business models, because everything is then built around this whole idea of network effects. And doing good for the community is a benefit to the community, which goes back to the societal thing. Because if you are not good to society, you'll destroy the value of your token. That's right. It's pretty clever, because you have to act in certain ways, or you will be forced, either ejected from that society, or you will devalue the society yourself. So yeah, I think it's interesting, and I think what it does is give people a different set of assets of which to generate wealth, and different set of investments.
On the economic side of that, a question I get a lot of is, are we still in a, winner take all kind of structure as, these social tokens come out, or DAOs or virtual worlds kind of sprout? Or is there some other thing that's going on where if you're an artist who has a strong following and you have, 1,000 fans that love your work, you can build a very powerful, economic model? What do you think of that? Or are we?
I think that's right. I think it's fragmenting down to minuscule communities if need be, and hyper serving those communities. And we talked before about this interoperability layer. Well, then if we've all got a wallet in our browser and we happen to be in our Instagram world, which itself is a virtual world, we're in Instagram world and we want to exchange value. We've got our wallet that's integrated. We do that. So you're the creator. You can operate with your audience in Instagram world, in Facebook world, in TikTok world, in email world, whatever world it is, doesn't really matter. So we'll get to that. So you'll have direct connections with your audiences and you're essentially not renting them back. So if you are a music artist and you go on tour and you want to sell tickets, well, you have to pay Facebook and Google to advertise the tour. Well, if you've got token holders, you don't need to do any of that.
Yeah.
If you're a music artist, you have to finance a tour and you usually go to a banker and pay. No, you might as well appeal to your audience, to your token holders and say, you give me the $10 million I need for the tour and I'll give you a 12% return. And then they participate and then they're going to sell tickets because they want their 12% yield back and their token to go. So, there's endless permutations and combinations. So, I just think it's going to be interesting. And you'll see the same thing in what you're doing is you'll see a lot of experimentation in all of these ideas. As people come in to try and use the experience that you've built for people, they'll use it in ways we don't even know, or we can't get our heads around.
And so, to your point, are you saying that you believe that social tokens are going to be what leads to greater mass adoption of crypto versus what we're saying, Bitcoin or Ethereum, layer one? Simply
put, the second, third, fourth, and fifth largest Twitter accounts are pop stars and footballers. They have 120 million, 150 million people, right? So the reach of this is, there's only 150 million use crypto now, today, 150 million. Rihanna has got 120 million on Twitter. Let alone what she reaches across Instagram and everything else, her reach and then her fan clubs reaches and all the other groups, it's probably 500 million people. So if adoption's what you want, well, there's your adoption. If you think about brands like Nike, what's their reach? Billion people, maybe more. So that dwarfs all this kind of messing around we're all doing with money and cryptocurrencies and everything else. That's why it's so big. And that's why that ecosystem with the token as the system of money and the NFT as a digital value, when those dovetail, you've built a whole economic systems and they can be huge. And they're much larger just by application.
And where does that leave us with, Bitcoin or Ethereum or, the major currencies versus, new users maybe going and buying, specific social tokens or, potentially other currencies?
I think, as with everything, once adoption reaches peak, the rate of change slows down. So the growth will be less in those and more in other things. It's pretty typical. That's why, you can make more money in VC than you can owning Amazon shares. They're just two different things because they're two different points in the adoption cycle. So I think people will own cryptocurrencies and I think they play a role in the asset things. But I think it's just one of the foundation stones of all the things going on. I think if we talk again in 10 years' time, it's all on this. And our wallet will have NFTs, your land, insurance policies, all sorts of contracts, your memberships to your communities, which will be going up and down in value. And it's all going to be interoperable. So I could just, send you on my, my Liverpool Football Club tokens because, you know, for whatever reason, in exchange for an NFT you've given me, they become exchangeable. Why the hell not? So that's why, you know, it's that complete digital fluidity where it's just normal. It's, you know, it's extremely normal. And, you know, we're seeing, you know, I'm half Indian, and we're seeing digital adoption in India happening lightning pace as well. So, you know, with their system of payment and the Aadhaar identification system and the UPI payment system, they're very much orientated towards digital. So I think you're about to see the central bank are going to give some, and the government are going to give some regulatory clarity to all of this. India's going to explode in this kind of stuff because people are already doing it. I mean, you can send by UPI, you know, instant payments to everybody, and everybody's building fintech layers on top. So just all of these things. That's why I just think of the metaverse as all of these things coming together. You know, it's kind of, it's that and that and that and that and that and that all over there, whatever that there is.
Yeah, and whatever that will become, right? As new technology gets integrated into this, as we, I think, grow as a society and get more digital and get more digitally native, which, you know, again, our kids are starting with these technologies earlier and earlier. And so the way they think about, you know, finance or social, you know, relationships are going more virtual from an early age. And so this is maybe where it starts in the future, is a social token.
And I think, to kind of finish off, is I think the key thing here is that people need not to frame this out of fear because they saw Ready Player One.
Yeah.
And, you know, we don't want any of that. It doesn't have to be any of that. You've kind of alluded to, we can all create worlds, and we can only be members of the worlds that treat us well, that we want to be part of. Whatever your value system is reflected by that community. And so people shouldn't be fearing this to say that it's a dystopian world. We're humans. We'll create dystopian and utopian all the time. We'll screw everything up, make everything terrible, and make everything wonderful all at the same time. But it's just going to be happening in a digital world too, as well as the physical world. And as you're talking about, the integration between the two will be normal to us. And that's okay too. Because remember, it's this weirder concept you're talking about. I can look at my phone and see the NFT you put in my lounge, right? That is a weird concept, as it was a weird concept that you could watch films, not at the cinema, but on this thing in your lounge, which was a television, right? You know, people forget that this is a relentless pace of technology. It continues. And what seems ridiculous, impossible, and dystopian ends up being just normal.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that we're going to build some amazing things from this technology. So I'm very excited about the future, and we're hoping to help play a part of that in Superworld and really bring together a community to build something that I think is going to enhance humanity. So definitely wholeheartedly believe in what you just said.
Yeah. As I say often, what a time to be alive.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, lovely to meet you, and good luck with everything you're doing. Sounds super exciting.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right.
Good to talk to you, and this was great.
Yeah, take care.